All right, so it is a big pleasure for me to present Jackie. You are in the States, Jackie, but we have actually been in contact for quite a while, right? You've
5 years.
many years ago, when you wanted to come to Ecuador, relocate to Ecuador, we met in São Paulo at my previous place. And well, I've been following your teachings and everything that you say. That makes just so much sense, and you have such a wonderful way of describing it ever since. And you have also been really active in our Facebook group, like pointing people into the right directions about working with horses in the way that we want to, because there's a real big difference between wanting to connect with horses in a respectful way and then doing it, right? So often, I mean, I struggle with the same things. I have a herd of 6 to 8 horses usually, and sometimes they have other ideas, and it can be really difficult, know when to insist and when to let go, if insisting that they form one herd is really important, or if it's better for them to split into bands. And there's so many things that are important for that endeavor when we ask the horses to partner with us. So welcome.
Thank you.
This is beautiful that you're here. And we have a video that is a beautiful visual representation of what you will talk about. But I think you'll start with a short introduction, and then you let me know when you want to show the video. The screen is yours.
Welcome. You so much. I think this group in particular is going to be open to some of what I'm going to talk about today. The normal horse world's focus is predominantly on training your horse, using gadgets and gear to make the horse do something for you. Right. What I would like to focus on today is how we humans can learn from 4 innate traits that all horses share, and illustrate how much you can accomplish with your horses just by building on those traits. And the traits are bond, trust, communication, and synchronicity. An isolated horse in the wild is at greater risk of getting attacked and killed than if he is a member of a trusted herd where he can rely on his fellows to be paying attention to take care of him. So horses tend to want to build bonds with those who prove to be calm, confident, and trustworthy. That's just the nature of a horse. Trust reduces stress to the horse, and it inclines the horse to want to follow the herd, the lead of a trusted friend who is confident and is proven to be making safe decisions for that horse. Okay. Horses are also expert at reading predator emotions and intentions as a survival trait. They learn through observation and mimicry, first of their dam and then of their herd mates. So it is natural for them to mimic the behavior of their trusted human friend. If the human friend's behavior is honest, congruent, and clear. So the rule is pretty simple, actually. You break it all down to everything else. Do in your own body what you want the horse to do in his body. That's real simple. It's not complicated. You don't have to memorize cues. You just have to do in your own body what you want the horse to do. Now that encompasses, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. We had a question in another group, I think yesterday, with Veronica, who's also here, about the trust technique, which is a technique that is about that, about not expecting something and focusing on the non-desired behavior, but on being what you want to get, like trustworthy and calm and present. And if we are that, then the horses will also go into that vibe.
And for sure, they will not go into that space if you are not. Mm-hmm. So if you go into the presence of the horse in tension, irritation, frustration, anxiety, you're not going to get calm, relaxation, and trust. It just doesn't happen, and it can't happen. When we talk about, doing in your body, it really does encompass your energy, your emotions, your relaxation, your focus, and the rest of your body language. It's a whole package. And lastly, horses are born knowing that their safety depends upon being able to move in synchronicity with the rest of their herd. So the traits of mimicking trusted, friends, whether they're equines or human, and synchronizing with trusted friends allows us to create connections with our equine friends that are much stronger and safer, and to obtain many desired behaviors without the use of training, force, or tack. And that's basically what I'm going to be addressing today. I'm going to discuss each of these 4 traits, and then as Christina said, we have a short video which gives you a visual illustration of those traits, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So what is bond? Bond is quite simply the horse choosing to be with you. And people who have horses generally like them and they want the horse to be with them. But the question is, does your horse want to be with you? For many horses, this answer is assumed, but never actually asked. So if your horse is stalled or in a small paddock, and you go out to halter him and lead him up to be tacked up and ridden, your horse was never asked about whether he wanted to do that. If you do liberty, where you are snapping a whip at his rear end to get him to face and come to you, he is responding to coercion. He is not responding to a desire to be with you. If every time you go out to see the horse, you have a carrot in your hand, he's coming to the carrot. He's not necessarily coming to you. In order to get an honest answer from the horse about whether he wants to be with you, he needs to be able to stay away from you and leave you without an adverse consequence. He needs to come to you because he chooses to come to you without coercion or bribes. There's nothing wrong with offering a reward of scratches or a treat to a horse for doing desired behavior. There's nothing wrong with, using a short whip or a stick to point to body parts in order to communicate with a horse. But leave off both of those until the horse has chosen to bond with and trust you. And if you do that, you're going to find that what you need to do with that horse in terms of the volume that you need to use or the intensity you need to use drops dramatically.
I think that's something super important and interesting what you just said, to leave the treats and all these things out of the equation until it works. Works. Right. I get this question a lot, like, what about treats? And I think that treats, some horses respond really well to them, and other horses are getting obsessed over the treats. So before you don't understand like really what they are about and know how they bond with you without any bribing, right. I think we should leave that out of it. And the same, as you said, the same goes for whips and for stuff that could potentially be a threat for them, especially, many of us work with rescue horses. Mm-hmm. So we really have to get to know them on neutral grounds first, because so many of them have made really bad experiences in life.
Right. And sometimes you need to do that in protective contact, where you have a fence between you and the horse, and that's mm-hmm. fine. So I'm not recommending that you put your life at risk, by not having that whip to keep the horse, at a safe distance from you. But if you can't trust that horse initially, sit on the other side of the fence where he's in his paddock and you're sitting outside. That works just fine. Mm-hmm. So how do you create bond? And I think the easiest way to do that is to share territory or spend undemanding time with your horse. I usually put out a couple of chairs and engage in a conversation with a friend, ignoring my horses. I just don't pay any attention to them at all. My back is turned to them, and we're having a grand party by ourselves talking underneath the tree. You can also take a book out to read. I once fell asleep on the pedestal with the horse on the far side of the arena because he wanted nothing to do with me. And 2 hours later, I woke up and he was standing guard over me. And I don't know when it happened, but sometime during that 2-hour period that I was asleep, he decided that I needed to be protected. And he came over, and far from being skeptical, he decided I was somebody he wanted to pay attention to. Again, as we were saying, don't carry treats, don't carry a whip, not for this exercise. You can use it for other exercises, but not for building bond. Mm-hmm. The point is the horse gets to choose whether they want to be with you without coercion and without bribes, okay? And what horses, like people, are drawn to those who are relaxed, confident, and make no demands on them. You know, they don't like needy people. They don't like, you know, abusive and aggressive people. They want to be in a safe place with someone who's having a good time. So you want, oops, there's a question?
Well, I mean, it's something that that I also teach the students in the course. So the very first exercise they have to do actually is that sharing territory without wanting anything. And it's so difficult.
It is extraordinarily difficult.
Yes.
Because
like, even if you go in and you're like, oh, I hope they'll come, I hope they'll be happy, that's wanting something.
Mhm.
You really need to be blank, like not wanting anything. And as Jackie said, the best way is to focus on something else, because for us, if I tell you, I mean, you all know the story of the pink elephant, right? So go into the paddock and don't want anything from your horses. It's kind of impossible. So bring a book about cooking or something else. It's not about horses.
Or actually, as I said, the friend that you're having a fun conversation with. I mean, if you see two people having a grand time together, you're drawn to that. You say, okay, they're having a fun time. They're relaxed. They don't worry about me. Maybe I'll just sort of gravitate over and see whether or not I can join in that party.
Right. Right. And what you said, horses are drawn to the least needy person or being, because that's safety. If you don't need anything and you are grounded and you know, presenting yourself safely in the world, that's what horses find interesting. So it's really a very important part, especially for the facilitators who have to be that column, that pillar, that anchor for their clients and for their herds. Right. So yeah, do the sharing territory. I tell you, listen to Jackie.
It is an awesome exercise. Now, I will warn you that if you've never done this exercise with your horse before, that you have a relationship that has been built on haltering, taking him out, making him do things, brushing him and cross ties, don't be surprised if your horse is highly skeptical. You know, that you actually don't want something from him. And, you know, it's not uncommon for them to, you know, to stay away from you. And it could take 15 minutes. It could take 2 weeks of doing these types of exercises before the horse says, okay, when she's sitting in that chair, she's not going to make demands of me. And I guess I might want to make a relationship with this person. How long, and one of the other questions people ask is sort of, how long do I have to do these activities? And it actually doesn't matter if you spend 5 minutes, 5 hours, it doesn't matter. What matters is that for the period that you're sitting in that chair, sharing territory, that you obey the rules. You don't leave your chair, you don't carry treats or whips, you don't worry about whether or not the horse is coming, and you're happy and centered and balanced. Those are the rules. If you do that consistently, whether it's for a 5-minute session or a 1-hour session, what you will find is the horse equates you being in that chair with no demands. And he is going to be more and more drawn to you over time. And as I said, how long it takes really depends upon how skeptical your horse is, but it will happen. I've never seen it not happen with a horse. If you've got a horse,
how people in the beginning, they ask, how long do I have to do this? And then at some point they get to the desire of wanting to do this all the time. So
yes, absolutely.
That's when you see that it's switched, right? Like, oh God, it's so wonderful to do this. And I'm like, okay, so you're not counting minutes anymore. That's great.
No, it is a part of my regular being with my horses. You know, whether we do it once a week or, you know, if life is hard on me and I really don't have the energy to deal with doing much more, you know, I just take the chair out and we have a conversation and the horses come out and they ask me to scratch them. In fact, that brings another issue. People said, well, is grooming a way to build bond? And really, it depends. If many people groom their horses by haltering, tying them, cross tying them, and grooming them whether the horse likes it or not. Again, the horse has never been given his consent to being groomed in that way. And that does not build bond. That basically takes away his ability to have any say over what's being done to his body. But if you take a brush out with you when you sit in your chair, and you sit your butt in that chair and not move and allow the horse to come up to you and say, you know, this part of my body itches, could you please relieve my itch? That absolutely builds bond. Now, I will say that my horses personally prefer my fingernails just to brushes, you know, so I have a brush with me, but they generally are asking me just scratch my belly, scratch my hind leg, and you'll see that in the upcoming video. Which brings us to scratches. Why are scratches so important? A skeptical horse is not willing to show vulnerability to predators because it's dangerous. In the wild, showing vulnerability, I'm limping, I'm sick or whatever else, is likely to make them targeted by predators, and they're more likely to get killed. And even though we have domestic horses, those horses have the same instincts. And this was really brought home to me with a client who brought in a 9-year-old Mustang off the range who had gone through 4 owners in less than a year, because the first 3 had all been bucked off the instant they tried to mount the horse. The horse was extremely cooperative on the ground, but they had their butt hit the saddle and their butt went flying. I mean, they simply could not ride the horse. So looking at Maverick in the pasture, he looked completely relaxed. And when I walked up to him, every muscle in his body was as tight as a bow. And even though it was fly season and my horses were begging to be scratched, he showed absolutely no inclination to show pleasure at being scratched. So Maverick clearly viewed us as predators who were not to be trusted, and he realized he had to obey commands on the ground, but he was not about to have that predator put their butt on his back. He just didn't want to do that. It was only after we convinced him that he was safe with us did we discover that he had the biggest itchy, syndrome in the world. And that trust and that desire to be scratched was the path in to being able to get on this horse without being bucked off. Because once we started scratching him, I had Anna actually sitting on the side of a round pen, and he would go up to her at liberty and she would start scratching and say, I can't reach the other side of your back, Maverick. And Maverick would go right next to the fence and say, well, now can you? And she said, well, I can sort of reach over here. And he'd bump against her and say, now can you reach me? And she slid on his back. And far from bucking her off, he just said, please, please stay up there as long as you want and scratch me. So scratching is asking to be scratched is your horse saying, 1, I like you, and 2, I trust you. And you really want to encourage those 2 opinions. And so scratching is something that I really strongly recommend that you do with your horses, above and beyond a lot of the other stuff. It's just sometimes it builds bond and trust. And if he's bonded and trusted you, he's going to be a lot less likely to panic. And that makes being around that horse a whole lot safer. So,
right. And it's, we usually, or I recommend my students to just go into the herd and take a brush or fingernails or brush them without doing this, haltering and tying or cross tying, but just moving around freely in the group of horses and brushing whoever comes your way. And it's such a beautiful way of them asking you and asking, showing consent. And you also find out right away, like, maybe this mare is in heat and she doesn't want to be touched there. So she'll just naturally move around it. So yeah. And the video really shows beautifully how your horses do that with you, how they have trained you.
They have. I'm very well trained.
Yes, you're very well trained.
So I think it's so important to build bond and trust because it creates a much safer horse. Horses are most dangerous when they get startled or they're frightened and they don't know what is the right thing to do. And they rely back on their instincts of flight. That's what horses do when they're scared. Generally run a quarter mile away, turn around and see whether or not the saber-toothed tiger is chasing them. So if you can prove to be a bonded and trusted friend, then they are far more likely to believe you as long as you are honest, and they can trust you to be accurately reading what their capacity is in that moment. So lying to a horse doesn't work. Asking them to do something that they say, there's just no way, I can't do that, doesn't work either. So you never want to ask a horse to do something that the answer is going to be no. And a lot of people get into this thing of, I've got to make the horse do what I want them to do. Well, there's no better way to train a horse to not do what you just asked them to than to ask them to do something that they cannot do, if that makes any sense to you. So it's really important to build bond and trust. And that means you have to be trustworthy. You have to be able to read your horse's body language and limits and be able to say, if I ask him to do this, he can physically, mentally, and emotionally do it at this moment. And if the more accurate you get at analyzing that, the more likely your horse is, even if he's not sure he can do it, to say, yeah, I can, because you've asked me 5,000 times to do something, and every single time you've asked me, I could do it. And what that means is that he can accept things that would be challenging or even impossible if you have not built that trust and bond. So it's worth the time. And besides that, it's fun.
Right.
Any other?
I think we should give them the video because it's just so nicely illustrating everything that you're saying.
Okay. You don't want to talk about honesty, congruency, energy, relaxation?
Let's do that after the video.
Okay, sounds good.
My dog is desperately trying to come in here. He's like watching me through the window, like, you're sitting there, why don't you let me in? See the calendar. Okay, let's have the video.
Of love is what I understand when you reach for me with a gentle hand. Actions speak louder, words aren't enough. In the language of love, the language of love, not spoken with the tongue. It comes from the heart, it's heard by everyone. Crosses or borders around the world, the universal language of love. Every person, every creature, every moment, with every breath, we can send a thought to heal, and what we give is what we'll get. I needed someone who could understand, and then I saw you, and I reached out my hand. You didn't say a word, your eyes said enough, because you spoke the language of love. Language of love.
Wow, such a beautiful, beautiful video. And what I love about it, I mean, there's so many scenes that are just amazing, like Mystic partnering and syncing up with you, and then even out in the wild. But it's not a trick. You are a normal person. I know that. You are not a circus trainer or a show trainer or something. You are just a normal horse person. And I think that is so encouraging for all of us. Like, it is possible. It really is.
It's more than possible. I mean, these are innate traits of the horse.
Mhm.
You know, if you do not have trust and bond, the horse doesn't want to be with you. And the body language and the synchronicity is not likely to happen. It just won't.
Mhm.
If you do have trust and bond, then you start looking at the other parts of how the horse interacts with the predator, the human being, and realize that if we become the kind of person they want to be with and that they can trust, then they will listen to our body language and they will sync up with us.
Mhm.
So let's talk about some of those human traits that we have to change. You know, I
Yeah.
said, if you don't like what your horse is doing, the one you have to change is the human, not the horse.
Mhm.
Honesty and congruence are
And
terribly
so,
important.
like, listen to this. This is the important part. It's not about finding a technique on how to encourage your horse or how to teach them the clicker trick or whatever it is. It's about that, about you. Not about,
Absolutely.
so go ahead.
Horses are expert at reading what is going on inside predators, including humans. They have to be able to read the predator's emotions and intentions in order to avoid attack and death. I mean, that's just it's a survival trait. This skill is also one of the things that makes them such good healers. They can read what a person is actually feeling and reflect reality, as opposed to the expert lies and ingrained lies that that person may be telling not only you, but themselves. So humans just simply aren't as good at reading real emotions and intentions as as horses are. So what you really want and feel comfortable with are key parts of body language. And although honesty and congruence are innate to the horse, they have to be taught to the human, because humans have been taught from birth to lie. So training in this case is of the human, not of the horse. And learning how to be a kind of human that a horse can trust is, as I said, the horse gets it immediately. It's innate to their nature. The human has more problems with it. In addition to honesty and congruence, horses respond very strongly to energy and relaxation. So if you are tense, anxious, unconfident, or irritated, you're going to have reactions from your horse that you don't like. They may run away from you, they may buck you off, they may bolt, but whatever it is, it's not going to be good, okay? By contrast, horses respond very positively to confidence, relaxation, enthusiasm, and joy. And while I often use treats to mark and reward learning a new behavior that I want from my horses, once they've learned that behavior and they're sure that that's what we're talking about, at that point, very frequently, I just have to be enthusiastic and praise them. And that's more than enough reward for them. You know, when I tell them they're brilliant, Mystic just sort of swells up and says, I'm brilliant, and he believes it. That gives him enough of an endorphin high that he's happy to do that. He doesn't need treats to do that. And I think I talked about, fundamentally, this is so simple. It's just do in your body what you want the horse to do in his. Horses learn through observation and mimicry, first from their dam, then from their herd mates. And I've noticed that a trick that is learned by one horse in our herd will soon be adopted by the rest of the horses in the herd without anybody training them to do it. And a good example of that is that chestnut mare in that video. Cami decided at some point or another to sync up at Liberty. She liked doing it on the ground. She said, why can't I do it when you're riding one of my herd mates? And the first time she did it was in our arena. Then she started doing it in the pasture. And then when we started to go out on trail rides, she would wait in the paddock. And as we were about to leave in the trail ride, she'd bang on the gate and say, take me too. And she just loved doing Liberty with us. And after about a year, the rest of the horses started doing the same thing. They would go into the arena with us and start syncing up. Or if we were going on a trail ride with other horses, they'd come up to the gate and bang on it and say, can we go with you at Liberty? And it was clearly something that they had learned. I didn't train them. I never took a stick. Now I did reward them. I did tell them they were brilliant, but I never trained them to do that. That was an innate behavior that they chose, and all I did was reward it.
I have a similar example here. We have like big tractor tires in our work pen, and I like to have the horses step up on it like a pedestal for stretching and for trust, and for the kids love it, do it with the horses. And they observe each other, and they see the horses that are up on that get praised, getting rewarded. Exactly. So some of the others, like Blondie is one of the favorites. Who does that mostly. He will just get on the tire and be like, look at me, I'm so good, am I? And some of the other horses also, like they try it and see what the result will be, and they look at you clearly like, hey, do you see me? And I'm trying something new here. So yeah, I absolutely hear you in this.
So that, again, these are innate characteristics. This is not training, and you can build on this innate characteristics, this desire to do what their herd members are doing and getting rewarded for, to get types of behavior that you want. So when I talk about, do in your body what you want the horse to do, if I want relaxation, I'm going to breathe deeply and soften my body. If I want energy, I'm going to inhale, lighten my body, and think energy and light. If I want a horse to come to me, I'm going to have a backing up, sort of softened chest, inviting them to come to me, the same way you saw with that young stallion. That stallion had never been handled by people. He knew from the very moment that, Nadja started to walk back like this, that she was inviting him to come to her, and he did. And he also loves scratches, because it's summertime and there are flies. And so, we never needed to give treats to that horse. All we needed to do was scratch him, and he would do anything for us. If I want a horse to back away from me, my chest is going to go out, and I'm going to use my feet coming up toward the hoof that I want to pick up and go backwards. And so my foot says, that hoof now, that hoof now, that hoof now, and they will back up in time with that hoof. And it's not a trained behavior, because it works with a young foal. A 3-week-old foal will do exactly the same thing, because he's used to mimicking his mom. When mom tells him to back up, he backs up. He just does it.
Right. And then, for everybody here who does the facilitator work, our horses respond to us in that way, and then they will also respond in that way to our clients. And then here is the connection to the embodiment. I think Monica is on her way home. Monica, if you're here, please raise your hand. Because if you are saying no to somebody, the client, and you have to use your body and be like, no, go away from me, or yes, please come to me. If we live that in our body and have the direction, the reaction from the horses, then it stays in our bodies, and we can, or the client can then apply it successfully in other environments. Of course, we don't teach them horse handling. We teach them body handling and emotional agility, which is then helpful for them in real life. So,
and that's the thing. Oftentimes, humans are resistant to hearing changes in, their emotional states from other humans. I've always been timid. Well, so I'm a little bit aggressive. That's just how I am. But when they start getting that feedback from the horse, it feels more real. And when they change behavior, you say, okay, well, this obviously isn't working. Why don't you try softening your body, walking a little bit softer? And the horse responds better. They go, oh, it's true. It's real. So the horse can give feedback that the human will accept as real, that they will not as easily accept from another human being, which is really interesting. Just to sort of round this up, in terms of turning, all I do to ask for a turn is rotate my shoulders. Rotating my shoulders rotates my hips. When my hips rotate, the horse turns in the direction that I'm rotating. If I want to stop, I inhale, sigh, and stop moving. And a horse will stop for that. The best way to start teaching yourself to use body language, because as I said, the horse doesn't need lessons in this. It's the human that needs to learn this, is on the ground. And I strongly recommend doing it at Liberty. Because if you have a rope or a line or a rein in your hand, human beings are almost incapable of not using it. And so if you got to take that away from them, if you want them to actually find out what their body language means. And they need to understand that if the horse didn't stop, you didn't stop. You know, your energy was still going forward, even though your feet stopped moving, because the horse isn't going to lie to you about that. And so it's easiest to start on the ground, do it at liberty. And sometimes at the beginning, the horse has a hard time to pay attention to you about that. And that is because most humans do not communicate with congruent body language. The most classic example of that is a horse starts to approach a timid person. And what does that timid person do? Oh, I'm afraid. And as they go back, what is that an invitation for the horse to do? To come straight over on top of them. And then the human gets upset because it's an aggressive horse. And they get angry at the horse, and the horse says, okay, I thought I understood what she was telling me to do, but I don't pay any attention to this anymore. It doesn't make any sense. So you have to be sufficiently consistent for a sufficiently long period of time that your horse says, wow, she actually speaks body language. That's amazing. I didn't expect that from her. So I think the easiest way to start this is just start walking at liberty at your horse's shoulder and mimic him. You know, and just sort of sync up your feet, sync up your energy. He looks left, you look left. He looks right, you look right. And at some point, the horse is going to flick an eye and an ear at you and say, okay, what do you think? And if at that instant you change something, you can stop, you can turn, you can go faster, doesn't matter what you do, he will follow you into that transition 9 times out of 10. He might not follow you if you're dubious, if you're saying, I don't think this is going to work, but I'll try doing it anyway. Then he won't follow you. If your timing is off, he asked you a question 3 steps ago and you're answering him now. Well, he stopped listening for an answer at that point, and so it won't work. But if you pay attention and he flicks that eye and ear to you and you immediately do something different, your horse is going to do what you did. It's just, it's innate to the horse. Synchronicity. Horses, like birds in flight and schools of fish, learn from birth that they find safety in movement by synchronizing with their herd mates. Changes in directions and gait are not cued by anybody, nor is there a consistent leader who says, this is what we're going to do now. It happens instantaneously and it happens in unison. Because the herd members just move with each other. The birds fly, change direction in flight. The school of fish is going this way and suddenly they're going this way and they don't run into each other. So synchronicity is an innate characteristic of the horse, but it can really, really benefit human interaction with the horses. Mm-hmm. So once the horse wants to be with you, trust your judgment, and you're using clear and consistent and honest body language communication with them, it becomes remarkably easy to teach them new things and to get changes of transitions, changes of gait and direction and anything else you want that they understand without any gear. It just happens because synchronicity kicks in and will help you. If you demonstrate something new to the horse, even after you've shown them that, you're supposed to sync up with me and we're supposed to do the same thing, if you try a new exercise, it may take several approximations to figure out what it was. And here's an example with Mystic. I was riding on him with just the neck string, bareback. And I said, well, let me see if I can get him to stretch and relax. And so I just went, and I didn't touch his withers, but I was definitely going down and stretching out my lower back across his withers. His first instinct was, I think she's asking me to go faster. And so he started to accelerate and I went, and just gave a finger touch on that neck string. He said, okay, she doesn't want me to go faster. And he thought about it for another 2 or 3 strides as he was walking. And then he blew out and he stretched out his neck and he made a long, relaxed walk around in a big circle. I go, cool, you got that one. Now, what happens if I pick myself up? So I went from being stretched down to lifting myself up, lightening his shoulders, and he came up, and it was gorgeous. His withers were about 4 inches above his butt, and he wasn't vertical, but he definitely collected himself because he figured out, okay, one is relaxation, the other is collection. And I hadn't taught him that, okay? That wasn't cued. That was simply following the fact that mom wants me to do in my body what she's doing in hers. Not entirely sure what she's getting to here, but if I can figure it out, I'll give it to her because I know it's safe and I know she's going to tell me I'm brilliant if I do. So the key about this, and the thing I want you to think about, is that most of this is not training at all, unless you count training the human to have honesty and integrity and relaxation and being comfortable in their skin and not having expectations, and being a good judge of what a horse is able to give you at any moment. And so when you think about what do I need to train, well, that's what you folks are all doing, right? You're going to be training the human part of this equation to be able to provide those things. But your horse already knows it. He already knows this stuff. And I'm not saying that you don't do training. I have trained my horses, or that you don't use gear. You're welcome to use gear. The thing is, if you do this as a foundation, what you're going to find is that you don't need more than just a finger touch to get the horse to understand what you want. And you don't need force, and you don't push horses over thresholds, which require them to protect themselves by rearing, bucking, bolting, or behaving in ways that are dangerous to human beings. It's just a heck of a lot safer. So that's predominantly what I wanted to say about bond, trust, communication, and synchronicity. And I hope you can take it back to your own horses in practice and discover a magical world of interaction with your horses. Any other questions? Or
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was awesome. And I mean, we have seen parts of it in our sessions when the horses do synchronize with our clients, when they do, like in yoga sessions, for example, the horses start to stretch and start to come in. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The client gets relaxed, the horse gets relaxed, and the client is encouraged to be more relaxed. And so it goes on. But I just love the way how you explain it, and how it sounds so real and so authentic and so simple, which it is, but then it's not. So
it's simple but not easy, because the things that are innate characteristics to horses are not innate characteristics to human beings. I think part of the problem is that our neocortex likes to analyze things, likes to protect itself, likes to meet others' expectations. And so humans are taught from birth to lie. How do you feel? Oh, I'm fine. Do I understand this? Of course I do. And it goes on for so long that humans actually get to the point where they don't know who they are. They don't know what they like. They don't know the things that they're unsure about. And that has come up so often when I was giving lessons on Mystic. I would ask the student, well, do you feel okay about cantering? And they say, yeah, I want to canter. And Mystic wouldn't canter. He flat wouldn't do it. He'd say, nope, this kid doesn't want to canter, and I ain't going to canter until she wants to. So I could not read that, because to me, she sounded enthusiastic and sincere. But Mystic said it's not true.
That's what we do in our sessions. Like, the horses read it for us. They know if somebody says, yeah, I want this person out of my life, leave. And the horse like, really? Are you sure about that? And so that's how we work in our sessions. That's how we help people to be authentic about their decisions and to really feel completely what they want to do, what they want to change.
Yep. Now, horses are miraculous at that. That's a skill set that they have that is far exceeds anything that humans can replicate. There's no question.
So I have a question for you, Jackie. How did you learn all this?
The horses.
Okay.
No, I did a lot. I took Pirelli through level 3, and Dennis Reese and Leslie Desmond and Buck Brannaman. I've done a lot of clinics with a lot of clinicians, but the reality is the horses are going to tell you, once you believe that your horse tells you what's real, and you don't take that as bad behavior, or I'm deliberately trying to be difficult, but just I'm uncertain, I don't understand you, I don't think I can do that safely, and say, okay, if that's how you feel, I need to change my presentation, slow it down, make it tinier chunks, so that you do understand, you do feel safe, and you do think you can do it. And I need to tell you, even when you type that tiny little step towards the right answer, that you're brilliant. You know, I may be wanting this much, but I got to tell him he's brilliant when he gives me this much. Because if I don't tell him he's brilliant when he sticks his nose out that far, he'll never get there. He just won't. So when I stopped doing clinics with horsemen and started paying more attention to my horses as my teachers, because they are honest, they don't lie to you, you know. And if a horse doesn't do it, something you've asked him to, either he doesn't know what you're asking, he's confused, he doesn't think he can, he thinks it's too dangerous, or it's not within his capacity at the moment, or he's just, you know, unconfident. You know, maybe I could do it, but I don't feel really confident right in this instant, and therefore I can't do it right now. And the better I got at saying, great, if you can't do it right now, I don't want you to. How about doing this, you know, the tiny little thing towards that? Well, I can't do that, but I can give you this. And that was perfect. And he goes, oh, okay, well, if that's all you want, then yeah, I guess I can become more confident and I can get further and further towards what you want.
Right. This is so amazing. And yeah, I'll just lead people in your direction. I usually recommend also a mix of different trainers like Pirelli, Carolyn Resnick.
Carolyn Resnick's great. I love the sharing territory was definitely a Carolyn Resnick thing. There's no question about that.
Yes, that's inspired by her, definitely. But then Pirelli, for example, also has his moments of big ego. So sometimes
the place I broke with Pirelli was when my horses told me they never, may I repeat that, never needed increased pressure.
Yeah.
That was never the right answer. Mm-hmm. If they didn't do something, adding pressure did not help. No. You know, slowing it down, waiting for them to try something, breaking it down into tinier pieces, that helped every single time. But saying that I'm going to ask with a whisper the first time and get bigger and bigger pressure if you don't comply implies that they're saying no for a emotive reason of I don't want to cooperate with you. And at least in my experience, horses want to cooperate.
Right, and you're desensitizing them to just bigger cues. Like, well, if you don't get it with the small cue, then I'll make you get it. So that's not. And
I don't want to make. I went from thinking that being a good horseman was the ability to make a horse do something to thinking that being a good horseman meant that I could cause the horse to want to do something and have them choose it. Mm-hmm. And if I couldn't get to that point with my approach, then okay, I needed to stop and change approaches. So if plan A didn't work, let's try plan B. If plan B doesn't work, try plan C. You know, through Z and then go 1 through, 3,000. It doesn't matter. It's never the horse's fault. It's always my presentation is not reaching them at where they are right now and what they need. And the wonderful thing about feeling that way is I no longer felt like a failure and a bad horseman. And I no longer got irritated with my horses when things didn't work out the way I wanted with, because I knew they were doing their best. And you can't ask more than the best of anyone. Including myself.
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much, Jackie. I think you have gained some big fans here. And well, you're already part of our Facebook group. So everybody, please reach out to Jackie. As you see, she can really explain this super well, and also more complicated problems. I've always found answers in Jackie. So reach out. And I have a class to give away again. But it's about the rescue process. Mm-hmm. So you won't pick a number, but I want you now in the break, 8 minutes or 10 minutes break, if you want a class that shows you or that explains you how to go about in the horse rescue process, what to do, how to get to that place where they trust you, what to do, wait, desensitize, what is it? Put it in the chat. Tell me why you need this class and I'll give it to you. So let's go into our break. And next up is a wonderful person, very special person, Tara Coyote from Hawaii. And she's speaking to us, I think, from California today. And she will talk about her own journey of healing with horses. She's also a best-selling author. Her book is fantastic. It's really eye-opening about the process of having cancer. I was really ignorant about that, but I learned a lot with Tara. And she's just a fantastic person. So in 10 minutes, we will meet Tara. And please put in the chat why you want the rescue class. Thank you so much, Jackie. This was wonderful. Thank you.